So welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I'm Dr. Aaron Werner, and love all the different conversations that we get to have and the different stories we get to explore and just best practices that we share and the learnings that quite frankly I get to steal from all the different guests on the show, and hopefully you are stealing as well. Today we are going to revisit a topic we've chatted about a few times, and that's virtual assistants, or as I like to call them, virtual team members. And I think that the nomenclature is important. And to help me, I brought on two friends, Dr. Audrey Raley, who should need no introduction. Audrey is a rock star and down in Texas. I'll let her introduce herself in a minute. And then Trevor, who works with Team, who my practice has our virtual assistants and virtual team members through, and who I have my personal virtual team member that quite frankly keeps my life organized. Mariana is fantastic, and she's actually been on the podcast herself before. But Audrey, give us a quick intro to who Dr. Raley is.
Well, thank you, Aaron. That was very nice of you to say. But I have cold started my practice. I'm a Vision Source practice down in New Braunfels, Texas. We celebrate 6 years tomorrow.
Already?
Yes.
That's exciting.
It's our sixth
awesome.
year anniversary tomorrow, so we're pretty excited about that. So besides all the things of, being an optometrist and running a practice, I also work with clients at Eye Care Advisors, Dr. Eric Voss and Dr. Robert Steinmetz, who I've also worked with for about the same amount of time, about 6 years. I was a client myself and then joined their firm, and so it's super fun getting to walk other ODs through the process of opening a practice cold, and so that's just been something that's very, very enriching. In addition to, doing all the optometry things. And I too would say that, obviously we're going to talk about it today, but my virtual team member is actually with Team as well. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Nice. And before we jump over to Trevor, I was telling Eric, had a chat with him the other day, how cool it is at Eye Care that, because they could easily make it the Bob and Eric show and do everything, but they find and identify really good talent and give them opportunities like yourself and Kristen and a whole bunch of the others to just take what you are and your personalities and uniquenesses and give you platforms to develop them to help others. Really paying it forward. I think that's just super cool, and it's been fun to watch. I can't believe it's 6 years. I remember when you opened, but fun to watch that journey. Now I feel old.
Oh gosh. No, yeah. I mean, it's gone by in a blink. I can't even imagine, what the next 6 years are going to look like.
Yeah, that's super cool. And Trevor, you want to introduce yourself real quick for us?
Oh, definitely. Yep. So my name's Trevor Mower. Like you said, I work at Team. I've been at Team for about 18 months now. It's been awesome. I've been working and doing business development and partnerships in healthcare for the last 6 years. I love working with optometry groups and working with these really cool vendor partners that we have here at Team, and that's where I get to meet really cool people like yourself, Aaron, and meet Audrey, who internally here at Team we have a pretty robust internal team that makes sure that virtual assistants have everything they need to be set up and that they're good to go. We all love working with both of your groups. And so I was just talking with a group here today. We're at a retreat right now, and we were just talking about how loved Audrey is, because she just
Lord.
is. It's true. It just got brought up. Just because you run things really well, and you're just a great communicator. So glad to be able to do this podcast with you.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us on, Aaron.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no.
appreciate
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. And for those who recognize Trevor, he was on most recently in end of January, right, when we did our the book nerds discussion. And Trevor, I appreciate you not. You probably appreciate not sitting in a random corner in an airport this time. You were a trooper last time, sitting in an airport when we were talking about the obstacle is the way, and so now stoicism has entered my life. So
Has my face just turned bright red just now because I was in a corner in the airport and I could just, Aaron and Kyle and they were just
Brianna,
looking
yeah,
at me
it's just
like,
it's
what? And Brianna are just looking at me like, what's going on here? But thank you for that. That was so much fun. The book nerds, I love it. I'm excited about all those things that come out. So, and you're just a stoic guy. Audrey, if you don't know that, like you know that already. Like Aaron, you just see him, and you're like, he's a stoic.
I'm intrigued. I'm gonna have to look into this after the
it's
podcast
fantastic.
today.
Holiday. It's a great book, and I think it plays a lot with what we're going to talk about today on virtual assistants, virtual team members, right? And so the book Obstacle is the Way talks about how the challenge becomes, how you handle the challenges, what's put in front of you, and embracing that challenge to really kind of change directions and make the best out of a situation and turn a potential negative into a strong positive. And in the world we're in, the connectivity we're in, it's a 24-hour day, 7-day a week environment. It's kind of the 9 to 5 doesn't exist as much anymore. Our lives are just a mix of personal and business all in one, and with everything that we need to do, we need all the help we can get, and we need to empower people to do what they do well, and then move what they don't do well, right? Maybe over to somebody else who does that skill set better. At least that's what I found in the office, and that's why we initially went with virtual team members. And our first virtual team member that we brought on as a scribe. I miss paper charts. Audrey, I don't think you ever had to deal with paper charts, but it was just so easy when I could write.
Yeah.
Right
well,
here.
only when actually like the power goes out, right? Or like you don't have access, and I actually, there was one associating job that I had. It was like a relief work job that I did where the guy was submitting paper. This was like not that long ago, like right before I started my cold start, I was doing this. And it was interesting experience. I, unlike you, did not like it, but
So I loved it. I had everything ready. I knew exactly where to write. And then I've got this EHR that just, it's wonderful because there's so much more data, but there's so much more data.
Yeah.
And so much more kind of nuance in what to click where and how to put it where. And so bringing on we wanted somebody in the room to scribe. That way the doctor could focus on the patient and somebody could take notes. But one, it was pretty expensive. I'm in California. Minimum wage is not even minimum anymore because you can't pay that. You got to pay significantly higher. Fast food workers now are in the 20s, and so it's really expensive to have a body in the office. And they didn't, they weren't hired. They don't like just sitting there and having to take notes on what I say, right? That's not fulfilling for them. So we brought in a virtual assistant who sits on a little iPad on the counter and as a third party in the room really has created some neat efficiencies in the practice, again, so the doctor can focus on patient, get the charting done properly, and make sure that everything's covered and done.
That's exactly where I started. It was with the scribe, and it's crazy to see like where it's grown to. I don't actually have her like on a screen in the room, so most of my patients actually don't know that she's there. But she's just kind of in my ear. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I'm going to pick on one of my colleagues, Dr. Ben Colston, who said, we were actually at a doctor's event. We were all chatting about everything. And he said like, you guys have got to do the virtual scribe. It's amazing. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to solve my life's problems. Like if I can get a virtual scribe, because I was sitting at home one night on Friday night, with my glass of wine, as we were speaking about earlier. And I am in charting and I'm like, what am I doing? And then Laurie Sorensen, who we all know and love, writes like an article, I'm pretty sure, about, are you a chartaholic and how do you fix this problem? And I'm like, oh my God, this is me.
That's
like,
me.
What am I doing? I'm wasting so much time. I feel like my brain's going in a million different directions. Just to fast forward, and I know you guys have talked about it on the podcast before, but I read the book, Buy Back Your Time. Mm-hmm. Granted, I had actually hired the scribe from team prior to that, but I've just had so much transformation that I feel like aligned with when I made this initial choice to start with a virtual team member. But going back to Dr. Colston, I actually was in my first week with the virtual scribe, and it was really hard. I hope we can talk a little bit about that today, just like maybe some misconceptions with virtual team members, because while it is extremely amazing, and we can sit here and talk about all the reasons why it's so cool, and I'd love to hear from you, Trevor, like, why you guys think I've been successful just from your perspective, with your program. But that first week was so difficult. My team member, her name is Rosario, her and I literally almost threw in the towel on day 3. I mean, we were just so stressed, and I'm frantically texting Dr. Colston like in my lunch break, and I'm like, how the heck did you do this? And he's just like, actually, and he was not actually working with team at the time. He had his virtual team member through a different entity. But he goes, I gave up on that like several weeks ago. And I'm like, what? Like, we just talked about this. You said it was, and so it was just so funny. But I chose not to give up. We kind of kept going, and tried to pull together as many resources as I could just to try to get her onboarded. But part of what I do at Eye Care Advisors is actually talk to our clients about training and onboarding their employees. And so I kind of have, a couple different specialties now, and maybe that's why I'm good at it, is, I talk to, okay, how do we get the people in our office onboarded and trained? But then also looking at a remote person, a person who's not physically in the office, how do you get them onboarded? And it does look a little different, and it also depends on what you want them to do. Interestingly enough, mine has grown to start to do things like prior authorizations, and she communicates with patients, via Weave and via email. And I know we talk about how some answer the phones, but a patient came in the other day. Her sole reason for visit was she was a dry eye patient that was actually doing very well on, a couple of pharmaceuticals, and unfortunately had some new insurance coverage. It got denied. The remote assistant kind of let her know, hey, the reason it got denied is that you need to come in. We actually need to evaluate you again. We need to document some things so we can resubmit a new PA. And so the patient came in complimenting my virtual team member, saying, she is so awesome, and she's been emailing with me and keeping up with me and communicating, and I'm here today really so you can check my dry eye and I can get back on this medication because it was really helping me. And it was just like, this is so cool, so it's really been life-changing for my clinic. And I think it's just going back to that concept of, thinking about, who is best suited for this. And, and you talked to Aaron about like the financials being a constraint. In my office, we also had the constraint of space. Like, I am in 1,396 square feet. So I don't have like a lot of physical space to fit another body. And my exam rooms are a little bit more efficiently sized, I mean, they're not tiny, but they're not, we don't have a lot of room, So that was also a concern and why we needed someone in that remote setting. But I'd love to hear from you, Trevor, what you guys think of, I guess what makes people successful with having like a virtual team member.
Yeah, I think that we hear a lot of what you're saying on people just want that magic bullet. And I brought that up a little bit last time that I was talking with Aaron about how people just want all their problems solved and think this virtual team member, this is the thing that's going to take off a lot of my burdens. And it just takes work, right? It just takes the training, it takes the communication, and I think that those are things that you excel at. And those are the offices that we see work really well. Aaron, I know you just sing high praises about Mariana a lot, and it's she's fantastic. She does a lot, and you've had to put some training and things and resources to help her succeed too. So that's, I think, something that we just want to be better about communicating is these virtual assistants and these team members, they're going to, run through brick walls for you, but just point them in that direction on what brick wall you want them to run through and make sure that they have the tools that they need to succeed. And I think that just having a relationship with them too, right? Like what we love is hearing these stories about these incredible people that we're getting into optometry offices and how highly skilled they are, what great communicators they are, how hardworking they are. And so they're going to do all those things, but you should build a relationship with them. You should have them be a part of your team as much as you can. They're just remote, right? So I think that a lot of those things just help you set up for success. It's interesting that you brought up the book to Buy Back Your Time. I feel like a lot of the people that are getting scribes right now have read that book. I was going to bring it up today. There's any of those types of books that are out there right now, just tell you about how valuable your time is, right? That's this one thing that we all have that is the most valuable thing that we have. And so how we're spending our time is so important. And so especially with the scribe, it's where you get your time back, right? Where you're not sitting on your couch charting at night. You're the one that's dictating and being able to have, some doctors, it's 2 hours a night that they're having to update their EHRs. And so they're not having to do that. They're having it just done right away. But especially for a scribe though, right, to learn something that can be complex like an EHR, and we all know that scribing can be difficult, it does take that energy and that training to make them successful. But once they're up to speed and they're running, it's life-changing for a lot of doctors, really, where they feel like I can be at home again with my family, right? There's only a couple hours a day that you get to spend with your family at night, and you get more of that time back with a virtual scribe.
Oh, absolutely. It's it's funny for me, and I put things, I try to put them very simply. We have this impression that my teammates and my employees in front of me, right, need a certain level of hand-holding and onboarding, and we give them a certain level of grace because they're new. Hopefully you do, right? If you don't, we got another talk. But we have an idea and an expectation of timeline for when they're going to be up and running on their own. And but when it comes to a virtual person, sometimes we forget that they're still a person too, and they need the same type of hand-holding and check-in and communication. Quite frankly, I think it's easier because face-to-face, and we now live in a virtual world. So I find it easier to communicate with Mariana sometimes than I do with my people in the office, because I feel like with them I got to plan time to sit face-to-face instead of a quick touch base. But one, we need to understand that they need the same hand-holding and onboarding and empathy and grace that we have our people in the office. But the other thing that I like to think about is, if you have a football team, my linebacker is a very different person and has a very different skill set than my quarterback, that has a very different skill set than the athletic trainer. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody has a role they have to play, and often, especially in small practices, we try to have somebody that does everything. And a good optician that can sell kind of sucks if you're trying to be efficient and running them through a pre-testing as a tech. A really good, efficient, detail-oriented tech typically doesn't sell very well in the optical. We all have our strengths, and 100% of the people in my office hate being on the phone. Right? They wanted to interact with people. They wanted to work face-to-face with people, yet I told them that they need to answer the phones and they need to make outbound phone calls to try to reschedule patients. They weren't good at it because they didn't like doing it. Right? It's kind of like asking my 350-pound lineman, right, to be a wide receiver. It's just not going to work very well. So instead, my goal with virtual assistants and virtual team members was to try to find somebody who liked that job, liked being on the phone, liked the nuances of details, pulling insurance, finding what somebody's insurance is, prepping a chart ahead of time, prepping our Max, our optical point of sale tool ahead of time, and they got satisfaction out of it so that my people in the office could do what they do well, and then Teo could do what he does well, and then everybody feels satisfied in their jobs, everybody feels satisfied with the salary that they're making. Right, mm-hmm. And then I put the right person in the right seat on the bus. It's very much EOS type system, right? Do you have the right people, and are they in the right seats? And we struggled with that until I was able to offload some of the stuff out of the office.
Is it also the delegate and elevate chart? Mm-hmm. Is that also from EOS?
Yep, that's from EOS.
So I had several key members of my team go through that process so that we could look at, what are the things that we that you hate doing and that you don't feel like you're good at. And a lot of it was things that, said virtual assistant or remote person could probably be really good at. And so I think really what you have to think about is what exactly, first identify what are the things that you need them to do? And then you say, to your point, Aaron, it's like, what personality or what kind of characteristics would align with this type of work? And I feel, that's kind of how I advise colleagues, like when they're hiring, right? If you're hiring an optician, you typically don't want someone who's a little bit more peaceful and who's more timid. You want maybe someone who's a little more charismatic or a little more apt to be okay with sales and talking about money and numbers and cost and, being willing to get comfortable with the patient and style them and that sort of thing. And then, on the reverse, if you've got someone who's very playful that doesn't pay attention to the details, you don't really want them, one, sitting in front of a computer screen doing tedious work because they don't like it and they don't thrive in that, and they might miss important details. And so I think that's a really good point, but maybe that's where people need to start, is like, what work do I really need? What are my biggest pinch points? What type of personality aligns with this? And I mean, team makes it super easy when you interview. I mean, you're just back to back with 4 to 5 people, and you can ask your specific questions and you can ask about personality, but you do get an idea when you're talking with them. I think for the scribes, when I initially interviewed, it was, who can I talk to all day long? Because this person's going to be listening to me and this person's going to be in my ear. I think at the very simplest terms, if someone is trying to start with a scribe or a virtual team member, like, just connect, put someone in connection with them, have that constant connection all day long. It sounds highly annoying for a few weeks, and I'm not going to lie, it kind of is. But I feel as though that is really what helped her have her kind of crash course in optometry. She had to learn a new language. She had to learn all the terms. She had to learn the nuances. And also, I'm sure, even just from like an accent perspective, she's having to learn my inflections in my voice and how I, talk about certain. Now we have these little codes. It's like how I explain something to the patient. She's typing grade 1 nuclear sclerotic, whatever in the lens. Yeah. So it's like I don't have to actually say the findings out loud. I can just do that, and it's really helpful.
Well, any good group of any good team has their own language, right, and their own culture, and their own subset. I mean, look at the sports teams. They all celebrate differently. They all engage with each other differently, and it takes time. It takes communication. But I think, Audrey, you said something that really important. And Trevor, my guess is that you guys run across this on both sides of the scale, good and bad. What do you want these individuals to do, right? I would never hire an optician if I didn't have a job description for an optician. I would never hire an associate doctor and say, well, figure out what your job is. That's silly, right? Why on earth would I hire another person? And hire technically might not be the right word because they're not true employees. And we've talked about that previously, but I would never bring on somebody without having a job for them to do and knowing what good looks like. If you don't know what good looks like, and tell them that, how can they ever succeed? How can they ever be successful? Because they're chasing a goalpost that doesn't exist. And you may not be happy because you are not communicating your expectations of what they want to them or yourself. So I think the first step in this whole thing, to your point, is what do you want them to do? What do you need them to do? And I think that delegate and elevate from Traction, the EOS system, is fantastic to look at as to what are all the jobs and what do we like doing and what can I move off of my plate to have somebody else do, and then I find the right personality, because virtual team members are just like us, right? You have some that are very outgoing and we want them to be patient facing, which is why we've got Vina on an iPad. She's amazing, right? And patients like seeing her, they like talking with her. Quite frankly, they talk less about stories, so it speeds up the process too when they know that Vina's listening in. But others are more data focused, and I don't want them to be customer facing. That's not their strength. I want them to be doing the details work so that I know the details are done right.
Do you get that a lot, Trevor? Those people or ODs who are coming to you guys, like, they just want help, but they don't have a firm direction on what they need help on. Does that happen?
Yeah. It definitely happens. And those are the ones that we kind of have to. What's great about team is, like I said, we're here just a meeting as our U.S. team, because we have this robust U.S. team of account managers that really want to help make sure that you're set up for success with a team member. And so that account manager is going to talk to you and make sure that you do have that job description and say, hey, here's what's been successful in the other offices I'm working with. So they'll kind of take those people and kind of, pump the brakes for a second just to make sure that like everything is going to work out for them. One thing that you said too, Audrey, which is so interesting because I just talked to another doctor. I won't use his name here, but he's awesome. He is so great. He uses a virtual scribe, and he just said that the scribe in my ear has almost become my therapist because I'm talking to them all day. They know me so well because I'm just in constant communication with them. So it's been kind of a cool thing to get that feedback on
I'm
that
not
connection.
even kidding you. I have the same exact relationship with mine. But I mean, if you think about it, she hears everything. She hears all of my little conversations with all of my physical, like in-office team members. She hears all the little ones with the patients, our established patients that go on in stories. And since we don't have her on a screen, Dr. Werner, my patients are still going on and on with their little stories. And so like my scribe literally hears, everything. But it's so funny because, we actually had a pretty, and we've had several of these obviously as we could all sit here and probably talk about, but there's one in particular that kind of sticks out was an 8-year-old little boy that we had enrolled in myopia control treatment. And it had been kind of a struggle to get him going because the parents are separated and they were kind of bringing him in separately. And it was hard to get everybody on the same page and get him going. But, he's already at like a -4. So obviously there's a high level of concern. And he's just the sweetest kid. And we had to do combination therapy because he was more severe. And we started having this really difficult conversation about compliance. And he asked me, and I feel like I felt like I was in a movie. He goes, Dr. Raley, why is it me that has to have these bad eyes? Am I gonna go blind? And it was kind of like this very sad moment of this child. It was very raw. He was, almost in tears. I had to choke back tears sitting there talking to him. Like I couldn't believe that I had to then, how am I gonna answer this question? His mom's crying in the corner. It was such a moving moment, and we left. And so my scribe immediately said, oh my gosh, Dr. Raley, she's like, I'm in tears just hearing that interaction. And she goes, she's like my little cheerleader. She goes, it's so important the work that you do. She said, I know some of the patients are, they're cranky, they're grumpy. Sometimes you might have a bad day because some of them, say not very nice things or they're aggressive. And, because again, she hears everything. But in that moment, she was kind of like reaffirming that, okay, you are doing an amazing job and the work that you do matters. And I think sometimes, we just see patients and we keep, we're on to the next. I was like, we do this all day in and out, but you have those moments like that where it hits your heart and you're like, okay, this is why I wake up and do this. And this is, I am making a difference. And then when other people recognize that and then remind you of that, because you sometimes forget, it's like I feel like her and I have a very meaningful connection. She's very encouraging, like, Dr. Raley, make sure that you eat lunch today. She's like, please enjoy your weekend. She's like, you deserve it. Like, so we just have this really cool relationship. And I think that that's something maybe unexpected from hiring a remote team member that you don't realize. Like, this person is very intimately connected with you in your office, and it could be really cool.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being.
That's
very cool.
So awesome to hear. One thing that we really pride ourselves here on team is we want to look for a good personality fit, right? Like we want somebody that checks all the boxes for the work goals and objectives and things like that. But really it is something that we pride ourselves on is we know that for you to have a successful team member and an employee in your office, it has to be a good personality fit. So it's great to hear that you have that with your scribe, Audrey.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just like exactly, it sounds simple, but just kind of going back to like when we hire someone who's in person, same thing, right? You want it to be a good fit, personality, energy, kind of how they communicate, how they approach problems. You want that kind of same,
Well, it's neat. I talk a lot with Chris about our identity, right? And I think too often we try to be everything to everyone because that's our nature. We want to help, and then we get frustrated when something doesn't go right. When on the flip side we find our identity, and then we bring people on, whether they're in person or they're virtual, or remote rather, and that supports that identity and supports the culture and supports our mission. Because while we all are optometrists and we're giving eye care, I mean, that's such a broad spectrum of what we do, right? Are we niche? Are we specialty? Are we high-end boutique-y? Like what's our unique little niche? What do we do in-house? How do we send out? How do we communicate back to patients? How do we educate patients? What's our process? Do we spend time with them? Do we go as quick as we can because we need to get all the, we're the only game in town and we've got to help, all the members of the community get through? Just what are the nuances that make us who we are and our office who we are, and finding that right person to connect through. Audrey, I don't know if you know Alan Chung. He's practiced here in San Diego and great guy. But I was talking with him, and his first hire, wasn't a good fit for him, and he was frustrated. He's like, Aaron, I'm just not having the same success you are, and we're just not connecting right. And I said, well, Alan, you can go back and say this isn't working. Right? You're not married, right? You didn't sign a long-term agreement. I go, if you're frustrated, I guarantee you they're frustrated too. Right?
Yeah.
It's you're like, sometimes the best thing you can do is say, hey, you know what? It's not working out. And that monkey just, like, everybody gets it's off both your backs. I said, so go back and say, hey, this, I'm just like, we're not working out. It's not personal. It's just not connecting. And he did, and he's like, and I found somebody that we meshed a whole lot better with, and now my experience is different. And I have no follow up on the individual that he had the first time, but I'm pretty sure that person's in a much better place and a happier place too, right? So I think that just knowing that this is a process, right? You're building relationships, and if it's just a professional relationship and very sterile, you're probably doing it wrong. I'm not saying you got to get hyper intimate, but it's, know their birthdays, know things about them, know their soccer teams. Mariana and I, give each other a hard time about soccer. And I try to, Carnival was just happening. I made sure she had all the time in the world she needed to go play for Carnival, right? Because that's a big deal for her, and she knows when things are important for me and sets it up. So those personal relationships are what makes the world go around.
Yeah, and I will say, I had my original, which was not with team, but she no longer works with me, but I had her for about a year. We really didn't have that kind of really personal communication. We tried to, have that connection as much as we could. We would kind of send, pictures back and forth over Google Chat. It's like, hey, look, here's the sunrise here today. Hope you have a great day. Or, I send a picture of the dog. She sends a picture of her kids. We would try to still have that connection, even just through, chatting. And she was located in the Philippines. So, just the timeline and kind of how she worked in her hours and the work that she did. And this is something, you can still do with like a member from team. I trained her just by recording Loom videos. Like, this is me doing this, and this is exactly how you want. And it was a very simple process that was basically the same almost every single time. Yep. And we can think of what those processes are, in our offices. But that was really, really streamlined. It turned out that we kind of ended up, I onboarded my second one, which is the one I've been speaking about today. And she was just such a rock star that I realized that I really just felt like the things that were being handled by my primary could be then converted over. And I like having a connection to the remote team member. So you can set it up in different ways, but I like that she's kind of clocking in during our hours. I get to speak with her almost the whole time. I know what she's working on. I know what she's doing. So a couple different ways that you can work it, but that's how I like to do it. I've learned, and I think it's a learning process on this side of it is as you walk into working with remote team members, you have to figure out what are my preferences, but you don't always know that until you get into it. And then you start realizing, oh, I think I'd rather do it this way, or I'd rather have them do this, or this is what I feel more comfortable with. It's like for some people, they don't need a scribe, and they never probably will. They type two things and RX specs and they're out. I'm in there and I'm very, thorough. I have a lot more detail I want to put in there. So
it's and again, that's knowing yourself, right? And knowing what you want from them. We found too that involving our other individuals in the office made a huge difference, right? How does this person fit with your world? And how do you work with them? I like having the rest of my in-person team train the virtual team member. That way they know all the different nuances that I don't know about, right? They can share the quirks that I have, and so they're used to working with me. They become part of that team. They communicate with each other back and forth, because it's again no different than really, quite frankly, how I interact with my office because of my role in Vision Source. I'm on the road so much. Most of my interaction with them is virtual, and so I've highlighted that when Teo and Vina are just like me on the road, right? Reach out to them, talk to them if you need to, call them if you need to, right? Set up a Zoom meeting. We use a lot of WhatsApp communication, and the communication is the single most important thing. Just if there's a question, if there's a concern, reach out. We found that setting up scheduled calls is really helpful. That way it doesn't fall off our radar.
Yes.
And so that's something that we've found incredibly helpful. You don't always have to have it if there's nothing to talk about. You just text back and forth and say, I got nothing today. Do you have anything? But having a set time just to check in, and then reviewing the work no different than I would review my technician's work or my optician's work or my front desk person's work, right? And then I ask them, what can I do to make, what are we doing that just is dumb, right? Is there a better way to do this? Now that you've been doing it for a while, and I want that insight, I want that feedback, and a lot of times they've got some really cool creative ideas that I would have never thought of.
Yeah, I think the integration is so key. You have to integrate them with the rest of the team. We did and this is not a novel idea, we've copied it from other offices, but every year we decorate pumpkins for Halloween, and we put them out and the patients vote on their favorite, and we actually had Rosario basically Zoom with us, and she had her own, version of a pumpkin, which is not really a thing down in Argentina, but, she decorated it, and we got a picture of it printed out, and it was really good. And, we put it up because it's like she's part of our team. And it was fun, having her there, and she, we're just talking about different things. And so we try to have that interaction throughout the day. Sometimes I'll take her out of my ear, so to speak, and put her on speaker if she needs to speak with the team. But also we're scheduling those calls like you spoke about, Aaron. Like they did a update with Weave. They learned about some of the new features of Weave, and it was two of my in-office people with my remote team member. And it was funny because I had come back into the office and said, oh, we need to tell Rosario about the Weave update. Da, da, da. They're like, she was on the call, remember? I'm like, oh, yeah. Yep. So they're already having these conversations with her and resolving problems with her without me involved. And I think if I were to advise someone starting with a new remote assistant, I would say, like, make sure that they have those in-office contacts. Now, if you're going to hire a scribe, like, you're going to have to be the main point of contact because you have to teach them how you want them to scribe. But if it's for other things, I think that's where you can utilize your current team in office and have them help to onboard them, and then they have that relationship there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
What are some of beyond scribing, what are some of the things that you've got your virtual team members helping and supporting your office with? What are some of their roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, so sorting and labeling our email. So I know that offices handle this differently, but we just have a single email, but we all have labels with our names. And so everybody's has their own little inbox, so to speak. But things were getting lost. And so Rosario kind of helped, kind of what I think Mariana does for you, Aaron. It's like, just making sure everything's organized. She'll definitely chat to individuals on Weave if she needs things from them or wants to remind them about something that came through or has a question about something that came through. Organizes all faxes, sends all reports, all referrals, cataract, LASIK. We have a vision therapy office that we refer to. All of those types of things, records, whether they're being requested or whether they're being sent through other offices or through the patient. She also does all of those drug prior authorizations. I'm pretty comfortable with her kind of working as a prescribing under me. So as far as if that's our standard Xiidra, the dosage is never going to change. It's always going to be the same quantity. She's going to pump those through as long as I let her know, hey, I authorize this. She helps with reconciliations on that kind of stuff. Answering messages when maybe it's a holiday for us, but not for her. So she's kind of a person that's on standby. Maybe if there's an emergency, she can reach out to me directly like, hey, it's July 4th and someone's just called because they have an issue, so we'll kind of ask her to do those types of things. Gosh, I mean, there's so much. Emailing with patients. I know I'm forgetting things, but that's a good amount right there.
Oh, it's a huge amount, and we do very similar. And so, in the office, the only additional thing that Teo does is pre-pulling the insurances, and pre-populating. We use the Vision Source Max. There's similar platforms if you're not in Vision Source, but it's the optical point of sales tool. So pre-populating that, and then recently. He's actually started calling patients. We found that getting a chief complaint and a medical history ahead of time is super helpful because an eye exam to us, when somebody calls and says, I need an eye exam, that I know what I think that means, but it isn't always what it means, right? They may think that, hey, I've got a pencil sticking out of my eye. I need to go have my eyes examined, where I think it's a comprehensive exam and straightforward. But getting the chief complaint ahead of time saves a lot of time in the office and helps us prepare better for that visit. And patients have responded really well to that proactive phone call.
That's interesting. So he calls and he says basically, we see you have an appointment coming up. What's your reason for visit, or how does the
Oh, hey, we've got an appointment coming up. We're excited to have you in the office to help give you the best experience possible. Right? I would just like to review your medical history ahead of time and really understand why you're coming in to the practice. That way we can tailor the visit based upon your needs.
Is that all patients, new, established, or okay?
Yeah, we send them the portal, but I'm a patient and I don't ever jump on and fill out my medical history, right? If I do, it's a quick line through the no, everything's no to make my life easy. But somebody proactively calling and welcoming, sometimes they'll tell us things that we weren't aware of. Oh yeah, I was just I had surgery last month for, something big, or they just started me on cancer treatments, right? Things that kind of catch you out of left field. sometimes they'll say, yeah, I want glasses, and he goes, okay, anything else bothering you? And so now we're getting the secondary complaints that sometimes you don't pick up until halfway through the exam that are frustrating because you got to go back and do it. But it's nice to know what they're coming in for. It's also has really helped our no-show rate, because if somebody's proactively calling you, telling you they're excited to welcome you and essentially starting the exam, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of committed, and it just, like I said, it really helps out the whole flow. If you pick up hey, they happen to say I've had flashes of lights or I'm getting headaches, right? I know that we're probably going to run a visual field test on them, so we can prep the rest of the teams and the techs that day, so that the flow becomes a lot easier. We're running 2 doctors out of 1,800 square feet, right? So we got to really coordinate the dance of patients and techs and doctors so that we don't step on each other. So it makes it nice, so that when they come in, we're ready for them. And
It's so fascinating because you've kind of created this, you're kind of leveraging like that patient that's like, they feel like, oh, okay, I've already started this process. And you really haven't provided necessarily anything to them, or I guess they really don't have anything to lose at that point, but maybe they feel invested or they feel indebted. Like I've already told them I'm just thinking about that no-show rate. I had listened to, I don't know if it was a podcast, someone was talking about a dental no-show rate. And like, you should provide some sort of like free gift. Like, okay, what color do you want? Do you want blue or red? And then the patient chooses that. And now they feel like, oh, well, I have to go because they've already asked me what color I want, and this is the free gift. And then I thought, well, why couldn't we do that with glasses cases? Like, how can we get them to feel like they now have to come, like, and it could be something small, but I never even thought of just, calling. And you think about capacity, like not a lot of us maybe with our in-office people have the capacity to do that, right? But a virtual or remote assistant would.
Yeah, and I love the idea of engaging early. I don't like the idea of having to give something away for free, right?
Yeah.
I've never liked free and gifts with stuff. But I mean, I think about my experience outside of the industry, right? When I travel and go into a hotel, right? It's not uncommon that I'll get just a text message or an email, and I'm sure it's auto-generated. Hey, we're looking forward to welcoming you, right? If there's anything you need, here's how you reach out to get us. And they auto-populated my name in the email out there. It felt really good. It cost them nothing, right? Or very minimal on a MailChimp account or whatever they sent it with. Same thing with the airline. Hey, just want to welcome you in. Here's some things that are going up, or and I fly enough that now I've got a little bit of status. And I'm like, hey, pick your meal so that you get what you want, right? And just little pieces ahead of time to engage just shows that you care, which is why I don't like the free gift, because it feels like it's cheesy. Where all you have to do is show like you care, right? And just that touch point that you're proactive. Patients don't care, and they don't even know that Teo is not physically in the office, and they don't even know Mariana's down in Brazil. It's gotten to the point now where people know her more than me, right? And they say, hey, I just talked to Mariana, and we're going to do this and this and this. Well, you guys are just planning my life for me. That's kind of weird, but but I appreciate it. And yeah, like you said with the emails, she helps me manage my emails, helps me manage my my calendar. A lot of our invoices from the office get emailed to us, so she puts them into QuickBooks for me. And if something's off, she'll raise a flag. So I go in and pay the bills still, because I like that check and balance. But it's really nice not to have to just attach the invoices and pull them up, right? It's really nice to have another set of eyes looking to go, hey, this looks like it was doubled entry, or something's off a little bit here. It's outside of what they normally are, right? So just another set of eyes that helps. When we put on education events, she helps to just populate the spreadsheets for me so that I can submit them to Arbo, and which is just, it's not hard, but it's a tedious task. It would take me half an hour. Yeah. She does it in 5 minutes. They're so smart with this kind of stuff, and because that's what she does, and she's really good at it. And I hope the rest of the time she's having fun and sitting on a beach and just enjoying time, because what would take me 4 hours to do, she can get done in 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. I know she's not, so she'll listen to this, because she's helps produce them. But right, but it's just the efficiencies of what she does. Or she'll say, "Hey, Aaron, why are you not doing it this way? Right, this is a lot easier. Let's set it up like this, or let's set it up like that."
Yeah, those little things go such a long way.
Yeah, and it creates it creates a team, and ultimately, I can do better at what I do. Right, it lets me focuses on my strengths. It was still getting the job done. Lets my in-office team focus on their strengths. So, if somebody were to say, "Hey, I want to start with a virtual team member," what would be the first thing, Audrey, that you tell them?
Well, kind of just recapping, I'm going to try to tie a pretty bow around this conversation. Yep. I think I would first ask, what is your biggest pain point? What is it that you want them to do? If the answer is, I don't know, I'm just drowning, well, then you need to get that delegate and elevate chart out for yourself, which is what I did. And, what I had written down was charting, and that was kind of like in all caps. So I knew that was where I needed to start. And then, as we kind of started getting trained, I then said, okay, well, every time I was doing something, I was asking myself, do I need to be doing this? Can I offload this? Is this something that a remote person could do? And so I was training my brain to think differently about my tasks. But, first they need to do that. Then they need to, get engaged, when I would highly recommend team, and go through that process of interviewing and thinking about what type of personality am I looking for these tasks? What do I need? And, and my criteria was, this person's going to be with me all day long. I really need to like communicating with them. I want to like the sound of their voice, which sounds silly, but that was important for a scribe. And then, from there, you really need to decide, okay, well, how am I going to best onboard them? And, to that, I think we talked about a lot of good tactics as far as, how do you integrate them? Who are you going to identify in the practice that's going to be the main point of contact or contacts? You have to look at the logistics. We did a great webinar on Vision Source regarding, what are all the different tech things that you're going to need? And team, I know you guys provide that as well, as far as like your connections, your remote software, all the tools, like the physical hardware you're going to need, right? And then, to your point, Aaron, it's like, actually writing out, this is the job description. These are the things you're expected to do. And then I would say you just start with one thing at a time, because you cannot have them doing everything. And if your expectation is here, you're going to fail. You have to start, okay, well, for right now, for the first 2 weeks, we're just going to solidify and get confident in this one task. And then once they've mastered that and you've approved that, then you move on to the next thing. And so in my scribing, it was just about, we are just going to work on the plan. I don't want you to worry about typing in the findings. I don't want you to worry about typing in like the assessment and the diagnosis. Just write down the plan. Are we prescribing glasses? When are we seeing them back? Are we prescribing any other treatments? And then once we got that done, then we expanded to the other parts of the medical record and learning all the other nuances. But if I could summarize it, that's probably how I would answer that question. Whether that's more or less detailed than you wanted, that's what you're doing.
I think that was perfect. And just for clarity for everybody listening, if you're not familiar with Delegate and Elevate, it's a really neat activity. It comes from the book Traction in the EOS system. So I'll do my best to talk through it really quickly. I think it's a fantastic activity to do and have the rest of your team do as well. But if you just take a piece of paper, draw make 4 quadrants, right? And the top quadrant are things that you love doing and you're great at doing, and you can do this professionally, right? The next quadrant are things that you like doing and you're good at. The next quadrant are things that you don't like doing but you're good at, and then the last quadrant are things that you don't like doing and you're bad at doing them, right? And what it tells you is that when the things that you love doing and you're great at, keep. Like, that's you. That's what you do. The things that you like doing and you're good at, you'll probably keep some of those too, right? Or at least be closely related to them. The things that you don't like doing and you're good at, right? Like in my house, cleaning. I can clean really well. I just hate doing it, right? Maybe it's time to find somebody who does that and enjoys doing it, right? And you're obviously, Audrey, you are good at scribing. You just hate doing it, right? So that's the time to bring in somebody who is good at it and likes doing it, right? That way you can focus on the stuff that you like doing and that you're good at doing. I think the last
Exactly.
category is really easy, right? They don't like it and bad at it, but you're bad at it. You need to find somebody else to do that now. Um, but when you put things on that and start listing in detail things on that sheet, it's really interesting what pops out, and it becomes very clear what you need to keep for yourself and what you need to find somebody else to help doing. And by moving that task onto them, you're giving you're giving them more opportunities. So you're elevating them and their professional capabilities, because while I may not love, creating, playful marketing material, somebody else does, and if I give them that chance, then they get to shine, and I can go back to focusing on spreadsheets, which I tend to like a little bit more. So, so I think it also helps when you do that too, knowing what to focus on for your either in-person team member or virtual team member, and then writing through the expectations for that role.
Yep.
Yeah. Trevor, what from your perspective, you've worked with lots of different practices. What would you tell somebody when they say, "Hey, I'm interested in bringing on a virtual team member"?
Yeah, I think that Audrey should write this out, right? Like she's done a really great job on explaining it here. Just it's so awesome to see somebody that understands, like, hey, let's have a job description. Like, this is what I want you to come on for initially. I want to find somebody that meets these roles. I love that you're bringing up the EOS system and traction here. Really, just being able to chart things out like that. Where do you need help? Where does that person? Where can they best be for you in your office? That really gets us into this next level of, like, when we're looking for that personality fit, like, we know that we want somebody that can be in Audrey's ear, for 8 hours a day. So those things really just make a huge difference. Virtual team members, though, like you were describing, Audrey, you brought somebody on, and Aaron, you too, when you brought somebody on and you had them here for this specific role, right? Like, we can hit some really big metrics, and that's what we do in our go-to-market strategy here at Team is talking about, like, hey, you're missing 20% of the calls that are coming into your office. Let's do that. Here's your no-show rate, right? And we can point to those and say, you need a virtual team member for all of these things, and it's pretty easy to point those out. But what happens is you're bringing somebody on, and you're like, oh, this person can scribe, but they can also take care of some calls. They can take care of other administrative tasks. We love working with Leslie Gallagher when she's talking about her virtual team members, right? She will come out and she's like, well, what do I have somebody doing in my office? And then she pulls out this big thing. It might come from Laurie Sorensen too. Laurie has a great list of just all these administrative tasks. It takes up 2 pages of all these things that they're just having somebody do that you really just don't think about, right, when you're writing a job description, but need to get done. And so those are the things that they make your life easier, right? They make things so that you're able to spend time doing the things that you're good at and want to do. You're up in that quadrant from traction where you want to be. So I think just essentially that's what we're here to do, is to find people that like doing those tasks, that can do them, and that make your office more efficient and more profitable.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no way I could be doing what I'm doing now to the fullest extent without my remote team member.
No.
I mean, it makes me a little nauseous to think about potentially losing her because I'm so just reliant on her, and she just really just makes work so much better. So, yeah. I think if people are not on board with this, you got to figure out a way to get on board, because it's truly life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the right team around you is everything. And the cool part about technology and where we're at is that you can expand your people around you, right? It's a global economy. It's really neat to see insights from others across the world and their perspective, and how they see things, how they view things. It makes us better, right? And to your point, Audrey, we had a virtual team member who had her first baby, and the 2 months she
awesome.
was out was
Was hard, huh? Yeah.
was hard, right? You don't realize what you have until you don't have it anymore.
Yep.
And we had a in-office person step in, and they were not nearly as good at the scribing role and kind of thinking a couple steps ahead. They weren't as happy, and we weren't as happy. So it was really nice to have Bina come back and then celebrate her having a little one. So
Yeah.
usually at the at the end of the day we get the baby check in, and you get to see him and say hi, and you get to know each other's families, and who knows if we'll ever meet in person, but it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
the relationships that we've made carry that much weight.
Yeah. I
Awesome.
100% agree.
So awesome. Well, it's amazing how fast an hour goes. So Audrey, Trevor, thank you guys very much for making time to jump on. I will put both your contact info in the show notes. So anybody listening saying, hey, I want to talk through this a little bit more, please reach out and talk with us. Trevor, I think you know who to call to continue writing the book and refining the book on how to do this. But I think a lot of it really, in all seriousness, has come from conversations, unofficial conversations. Hey, Audrey, what are you doing? Hey, Leslie, what are you doing? Tim, what are you doing? Right?
Exactly.
And how can I steal your good ideas and then refine them so that they work for me? So it takes a community all the way across the board. So we appreciate what you're both doing to help us ultimately